it's not just a story, it was real life. All right, so I'm going to take you back and I'm going to share my story with you all. I said that I share this all the time. I just did an event Sunday and I get emotional because for me, these are real memories that I'm going back to that I'm sharing with you all. It's not just a story of somebody else that I'm getting to pass along, but I'm truly sharing the journey that we've been through. And it is my hope that it does provide some inspiration to you all and that it highlights how important you all are.
Her message really resonates with caregivers, and I think it really resonates with parents because she tells a story of her whole family living through this disaster that happened in the 80s.
It's an emotional experience each time that I get to present for a group of people and see their response and think, they're going there with me, they're going back with me, and then they're here with me today, and this means something to them too. I'm saying that we can focus on what's positive in each and every situation that we encounter. I have felt that tragedy in my life, and I'm going to share that story with you, has helped me to really define what qualifies as a complaint.
Her story is compelling and her message is really spot on. And what she's learned from her experience really comes through in her presentation and is really outstanding.
John and I had 160 acres that we were able to ride our motorcycle on. Got off the bus, did our homework, did our chores, and then we decided that we wanted to go see a friend that lived 2 miles away. My grandma lived right next door to us, and we just begged and begged and begged, and we wore her down, and she said yes, that we could go. So we made it there just fine, and when we were on our way back home, it was coordinating with about the time that people come home from work, and so we pulled out behind a truck on a dirt road, and it was stirring up a lot of dust, and so I remember, so many memories, but just the sting of the dust in my eyes. I was kind of hunched behind John, I laid my cheek against his back, just trying to shield that dust from being in my eyes. And he kept swerving to the left and the right, trying to avoid it too. And if we weren't 7 and 9 years old, we would have thought, we just need to pull over and wait for the dust to settle. But we just knew we weren't supposed to be there and we needed to get home. And so we headed on home. And John's last swerve to the left, we were met with a truck and hit. And so the gas cap came off of the motorcycle and provided the ingredients that we needed for a fire. And I received an 87 third-degree burn.
As awful as the beginning to her story is, she's made it work for her, and I feel like she radiates that to people. She just is the most positive person I have ever encountered, ever.
So I came not knowing anything, and after hearing her speak, I wouldn't have missed it for the world, and I probably would have driven from New York to California to hear her. And she's a huge inspiration to me, and it makes my troubles seem very minuscule. And so I'll always be grateful for her and the story she shared.
I remember, specific things from that moment. I remember being in the fire. I never remember feeling like my body was on fire, but I remember feeling like my face was really hot. I remember being so close that, when you get real close to a fire, you can see the blur in the flame. And I remember seeing the blur in the flame. And so I was life-flighted to Hillcrest, where I received my burn care, and I stayed there for 3 months. When we got there, they did a chest x-ray, and one of my nurses said, she looks like she has a large mediastinum for a pediatric patient. Now, they typically would send their patients on down to Galveston, but they didn't think that I would be able to transport. So really the goal was to do what they could and to keep me comfortable. And so she noticed this on the chest x-ray and come to find out, but I had a traumatic transection to my descending thoracic aorta. and they went in and repaired that.
I would say she's her genuine spirit and just how she's taken just such a difficult thing and has turned it around, and is really so inspirational.
And Heather is the kind that is not a put down, but a put up kind of person. And she is a glass half full kind of girl.
So my doctor had said that I had a 140% chance of dying. And I had a youth pastor that said, "Does that mean you should have been dead like a week before your accident?" And I said, "Right." When I was a teenager, I wasn't quite sure what he meant by that, but I knew it wasn't good.
You can't help but just love her and like her. She just, like I said, she just radiates positivity. I think that anytime we can share how to make things better for our patients, no matter what source it comes from, I think that that's important. So I think everyone can learn from her, from a patient perspective and a professional perspective.
Every time that I could, I would ask where John was. And I was getting different stories. And finally, the nurses told my mom and dad, they said, "It is imperative that she trust us, and you have to tell her." And so a week after, my mom and dad sat at my bedside and told me that John was killed on impact and that he didn't survive that accident, that the last moments we had together were on that motorcycle. And they were with me through that. My parents were there, and our nurses were there. And so I know you all walked through that story with lots of different families. And those families, you may not remember all of them, but all of them may remember you. And that is one of the most influential, powerful ministries that you can have, is to be with a family in that kind of darkness.
Any nurse has a huge challenge in balancing home, work, finances, and multitude of responsibilities. And I think that sometimes we hurry through our work just to get to our next task, when actually what we should do is embrace the moment with our patients more. As nurses, we would take 3 minutes of undivided attention, sit on the edge of their bed, and listen to their story. That's what I want to do after hearing Heather speak, is because her story is so powerful.
When I first got out of nursing school, I had a nurse say to me, she said, "Heather, I'm going to give you the best advice you're ever going to receive." And I thought, oh my goodness, she's going to pour all her wisdom into me in this one moment. And she said, "At the beginning of your shift, get one pen and put it in your pocket. No more than one." And she said, "At the end of the shift, you will still have that pen. But if you put 6 in your pocket, you won't have any at the end of the shift."
So there's those non-monetary rewards in healthcare that you get from taking care of patients or their families. You can get compassion fatigue, and so it's really important for healthcare workers to be able to attend something that really inspires them, motivates them, reminds them of how awesome it is that they're doing what they do, and renews them, and they can go out and continue on.
All right, so how do we diffuse negativity and empower optimism? We need to identify threats to positive living. And that's not keeping tally marks. That's not feeling like I went this extra step, I worked these extra hours, I went the extra mile, and nobody recognized. Nobody said anything. I just would like a thank you, and nobody said that. Do you deserve a thank you? We absolutely do. But sometimes everybody else is going that extra mile too, and they're just empty. So we've got so many people that are showing up that are balancing work and family and sometimes school and lots of different things going on, that we cannot allow ourselves to be threatened with the negative thinking of keeping score.
It's important for me to try and emulate that and know that I can make an impact in their lives because they've made an impact to her.
And for many years, I referred to myself as a burn victim because, not really out loud, but just in my mind, I heard so many people say that. That's what you hear. And one time I had said that to my dad, just in conversation, said something about burn victim. And he said, why? I wouldn't have thought that you would have looked at yourself like that. I would have thought that you would see yourself as a survivor because victims die. And I'll never forget that moment. And I thought, we really have to redefine ourselves. We have to do that for ourselves. And so as much as I love Jerry Weber, if you ever meet a burn patient, I always say we have burn patients who are in the burn center receiving their care, and then we have burn survivors. And unfortunately, we do have burn victims, but I am a burn survivor, and so I share that.
She really talks about the importance of empathy, and because of her own personal experience, she's able to bring that home to people who maybe haven't had or lived through some of the difficult circumstances that she's had to endure. So I think that's a real positive part of her message.
With our patients, that I feel like is relevant and applicable for them is that sometimes you can't take away the tragedy. Sometimes you can't take away the situation that is so heavy and dark for them. But maybe sometimes we're not meant to take it away. I've shared with groups, every time I get out of the shower or get dressed or whatever, I see the scars on my body. And I was a little girl with those scars. I'm now a mom. I'll be a grandma. I'll be old one day, and I'll still have the memory of what happened on April the 27th of 1988. And I feel like not being able to forget that, not being able to say that is just too dark and too tragic. I just need to put that in a closet somewhere and not deal with it. I think having to deal with it really gives strength. And if we can pass that on to our patients, that no, this is terrible, but you're going to grow from this and you're going to be stronger from this, that is so valuable because it puts them in the right mindset for how they're going to carry their journey on from whatever situation that may have brought them into you, meeting you.
It was standing room only at this leadership council that we have every month, and Heather gave her talk, and we were all just floored.
I think that I provide that personal element and that connection from a patient to a nurse. So there's that whole experience from being on one side of the hospital bed to now being on the other side and seeing both perspectives. So I have all of my experiences that I've gone through as a child being a patient and even still having surgeries at this season of my life. So being an adult as a patient, being a mother of children that have been patients in the hospital, a granddaughter who's at a grandma. I have all of those experiences. And then I also have the experience of a nurse and how there's that different element. And so it really brings it all together to make it a personal presentation that says that what you do is valuable, what you do has meaning. And I just want to deposit some type of joy that I can with what I've experienced into what people are offering to countless patients today. We need to have a joy in our profession, not just show up to do our job, but to really enjoy it and know that we're making a difference.
Everybody in the room was just in awe of Heather. And, we bring national speakers here all the time for different topics, including Hospital Week, Nurses Week, for inspirational, to kind of fill the cup of those people that take care of patients.
This is my husband, Brandon. We got married a month after high school, and then a couple of years later, we had Brooklyn. Jaron is 13. Caden is 10 and Gavin is 7. And you all said, God bless HeatherMeadows, because I have 2 teenagers in my house now. But they're great. When I was a little girl at 7 and looking at my body, I thought, at 7 years old, I thought no one will ever want me, is what I thought. And for years, I felt like that. I thought, maybe one day I'll get married for companionship, is what I thought through all of, my... So never in a million years would I have thought that I would meet my husband as a high school student, but we became such good friends, and I just, oh my goodness, we've been married almost 18 years, and I just love him so much. He's kind of, normal. He's a normal guy. He's not perfect, but...
who would have thought that we had a staff nurse at St. Francis who had worked with us for 5 years and gave these inspirational talks that we would pay somebody from across the country to come in and give that talk, but we have somebody sitting in our backyard that's better than a lot of speakers that I've heard in my 30-year career in nursing.
I can't really remove myself from my burn injury because it made me who I am. So as I share that with you all, that is definitely a huge part of who I am. And I can't say that I wished it would have never happened, because I wouldn't be where I am today had it not. So it's taking the worst part of life and looking at what good can come from it.
Heather was just awesome. I mean, she is at such a level of, I would compare her to any speaker we have had here.
Yes, it does. It feels like when I get to talk about my nurses, my OR nurses, and how I could only see their eyes, and they had their hair up, and you know, they had their hair up, and they had their mask on, and I talk about how one of my nurses could understand me when I was trying to communicate being intubated. I think about them individually as I'm presenting to these groups now, and it feels like a big thank you to them. I feel like I'm paying tribute to what they chose to do with their life, because had they not chosen to give to this profession, I wouldn't be able to give what I'm doing today. I wouldn't be alive to enjoy the life that I have today. So it is a great big thank you.